Hello, my name is Thomas Lee from Sismo Soluciones. Today we're going to be talking about our star product, which is the Pedestal, and we're going to be looking at the versions from the NG and the Max simulators. The reasons you might choose Sismo are because we use Ethernet technology for all of our plug-and-fly modules, and that's more stable, more reliable, faster, and it doesn't have any drivers. The reason is because we have robust casings and bays, which are all the metal parts. They're powder coated and really high quality. We'll have a close look in just a minute. And lastly, because we offer great support. We've been around for 15 years and it's not going to go anywhere. So without further ado, the 5 parts the video is going to be divided into are, firstly, we're going to have a look at the Sismo technology, the base plate, the motherboard, how it all works. Secondly, an overview of the pedestal, how it gets set up and plugged in. Thirdly, the different options and extras that you have, and also the differences between the NG and Max. Fourthly, how to connect to the base plate if you decide to buy module by module, which is a possibility we'll get into shortly. And lastly, we're going to have a look at it in use. So anyway, I hope you enjoy this video, find it useful. Make sure to like and subscribe. All Sismo technology is based on the SCMB, that stands for SIM card motherboard, and it's based on Ethernet, as you can see from the port right at the top. And the idea is this will be connected to a base plate, and this is where all the inputs, outputs, and displays are connected. Now, each pedestal has one motherboard in the case of the NG, and in the case of the 737 MAX, it actually has 2 of these. And I'll show you a little bit more about that shortly. These also have an IP address, and they have a host port to communicate with them. On the other side, these are just connected to the base plate, which is the next part I'm going to show you. Now, the SCMB is connected beneath the base plate, and here you can see the different connectors that we have. Now, these are 20-pin connector, 40-pin, 10-pin, so a module will be connected directly on top of this. The base plate basically holds the wiring for all of the modules, so you don't need to do it yourself. If you buy a pedestal, you will not need to solder. You also won't need to code. Now, most of them, as you can see, are connected with these, but there's also some modules, such as the rudder trim module, which will be connected down here, which will be connected with flat ribbon cables, but it's the same principle. First thing to do would be to connect the power supply and the Ethernet cable. So the power supply, we can ship it with the European plug or the American plug, whichever one you have. And the Ethernet cable would just be a standard one, and it needs to be connected to a router, a switch, or a hub. You can't connect it directly to your computer. For that, you would need a crossover Ethernet cable. In any case, they all go in this circle around here. There's 2 ports, connect them and you're done. As to the buttons at the front, these are actually all dummy. Nonetheless, they do give a great feeling of immersion. Connectors are in, but they're all dummy buttons. The great thing about Sismo technology is that it's modular, so you can choose which modules you want to install and install them simply with flat ribbon cables. Now, in the case of the pedestal, there's the added benefit. You don't even need the flat ribbon cables. They're connected directly onto these. So as an example, we've got the nav module. And the best technique to find the correct place for them is to line up the holes with the holes which are pre-drilled into the rails and simply press down. Now, if you still see that it moves a little bit, you can put in the Zeus, and that will be that sorted. For a second module, we're going to use the bright panel, which is one which actually does have flat ribbon cables, just so you can see the difference. So this is the rear part of the PCB. This one actually uses a 2-pin connector. Again, there's no soldering. We simply need to connect that here and connect the flat ribbon cable. Always disconnect power before attaching anything, just to make sure. And then once that's set in, we can find the best way. And that's that. This module is for adjusting the backlight, which is warm white on the pedestal. And this is therefore independent from the main instrument panel, so you don't need that from Sismo in order to use it. The 737NG pedestal has 5 different lines with various amount of modules on them. If you choose the alpha line with all the extras, it will be fully functional. So that's the alpha line with all of the different modules and repeated for the captain and FO side. The Bravo line doesn't include the fire suppression panel, which is the one with the fire handles. The Charlie line is perfect for a single-side cockpit because it only has the radios on the left side. So on the right side, it will have a series of blind plates along here. And as you've seen from the previous video, it's very easy to just add the first officer side if you choose to increase the size of your cockpit. As to the Delta and Echo lines, they have various amounts of modules. You can check which one's on our website. On the extras on the 737NG, we have 4 different options. The first one we're going to talk about is the VHF. So for the VHF, you have 2 options, and again, this is just a preference aesthetically. It doesn't make any difference in functionality because the other option is the RT panel. And it just depends which one you're more comfortable with or which you prefer. In either case, you need to use 2 RT or 2 VHF modules. You can't have 1 and 1. The second extra we can talk about is the ACP panel. That's the audio control panel, this one here. Now, I'm going to show you on screen the difference in functionality between the ACP Alpha and the ACP Bravo. There are some buttons on the ACP Bravo which aren't functional, whereas the ACP panel Alpha is fully functional. Thirdly, the ADF module on this pedestal here is a dual ADF. Now the naming is a little bit confusing, but this means that it has 2 encoders here and it functions as a united ADF module. Whereas the other option are single ADF panels, which is this one here. And as you can see, they only have 1 encoder, but there will be 2 modules, one located here and one located here. So again, this just comes down to preference, whatever you prefer. Lastly, the CellCal module, which is this one down here, in the Alpha version has functional buttons, whereas the Bravo is just dummy. This is the pedestal for the 737 MAX, where we don't have customizations per se, and there aren't any extras. This is everything is Alpha line, and these are all the options that we have. It's already installed. The fire suppression panel, cargo, fire panel are exactly the same as the NG. On the other hand, instead of the VHF, you must use the RT module. The nav is a multi-mode nav module, which is also different from the NG, as is the weather radar panel, the audio control panel, and the transponder. Other differences with the 737NG include the fact that the ADF is a dual encoder. It's not possible in the MAX to have 2 single ADF modules. And additionally, we don't have the CellCal module. Before you ask, it's not possible to use the MAX modules on the NG and the NG modules on the MAX. This is because we actually use a different base plate, and the inputs, outputs, displays will be in a different order. Therefore, when you use a script or a native configuration of Orbit or ProSim, they just won't be in the right order, so it's not possible to mix and match.